Straw Hut Media.
Welcome to Release Date Rewind, a podcast that celebrates milestone movie anniversaries. Hey everybody, it's your host Mark J. Parker, a movie lover and a movie maker, and thank you for listening to my show on the Straw Hut Media Network wherever you get your podcasts, or watching on YouTube. We're doing a whole career retrospective today with my very special guest, so if you love trivia as much as I do, then you're going to love this episode. The kids are back to school and back to the drama. Drama with each other, drama with their teachers. Drama created by Kevin Williamson in the late 90s. We're rewinding back to 1998, 99, and 2000, primarily because it was just the 25th anniversary of Williamson's dark comedy, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which was released in theaters on August 20th, 1999, right before Season 3 of Dawson's Creek aired on the WB. This Katie Holmes, Helen Mirren thriller was his directorial debut and one of the very first scripts he had written. Speaking of Dawson's Creek, we're also, of course, going to talk about that groundbreaking series that Williamson created, which I've talked about in depth on this podcast before, because my special guest today worked on that show as well with Kevin, and other projects with him, and other projects with other filmmakers. So you're in for a real treat. If you need to watch or rewatch, Teaching Mrs. Tingle is currently streaming in the US on Paramount Plus, and Dawson's Creek is on Hulu and Prime Video. All right, students and faculty, you're about to get a history lesson because it's time to rewind. Everybody, we are rolling. I'm so excited to be talking to a friend I haven't talked to in a long time. We worked together a long time ago. We're going to go down memory lane with this amazing producer. Albert Bianchini is here. Albert, how are you? Welcome.
Mark,
this is so fun.
So happy to be reconnecting with you.
This is so cool.
And I will tell this to those who are listening, the star intern of Live with Regis and Kelly when I was a producer there.
That's very nice. But Brittany Forgione worked with me. Well, she worked at Live for a few years. I mean, Monica was Regis's assistant, but she wasn't his assistant at that time. We weren't interns. But it's funny because I stay in touch with a good amount of people.
Oh, I love it.
That's so sweet. Well, I remember, Albert, so back in 2007, you were producing Live with Regis and Kelly. I was an intern, and a Gossip Girl had just started airing. It just premiered on the CW, and I remember Blake Lively, and that was a big deal, and especially
of course,
as a young person in the city, like everyone was obsessed with Gossip Girl, right? And I remember she was on the wall. She was coming to the show, and you were producing her. You might not even remember this. You were producing her, and
I'm dying right now.
I think you had overheard us because this was back in the day, everybody. Where I don't think we're giving anything secret away, but like all the interns kind of sat right next to each other at a table. And there were like 10
Nothing's
of us.
Changed.
Okay, yeah. Really? Oh God.
Well, there's no longer 10. It's a lot less over there.
It's a lot less. But they did end up getting PAs, I heard. But
yes,
like 10 or 12 of us, elbow to elbow, and we were talking about Gossip Girl. And I feel like you came over and you said, "Hey, are you guys talking about Gossip Girl?" And I was like so giddy. I was like, "Yeah, do you watch?" And you're like, "Well, I'm producing Blake Lively. Do you want to come in next week early to greet her?" And I was like, "Oh!" I raised my hand. I'm like, "Yeah." And so I remember coming in an hour early at 7 a.m. to get Blake,
funny.
And she was so sweet. I know she's kind of in some hot water right now. We won't get into that, but but yeah, she was like this new it girl, and I just remember greeting her, and that's all because you let me come in early to do it, and that was so cool.
Listen, I always tell anyone that can get an internship on that show, it's so understaffed that if you can get an internship there, like you'll do everything. You'll greet the celebrities. It's an all hands on deck situation, and I think it's probably one of the best internships in the industry.
You're so right. Absolutely. Amen. And it's fun. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's fun, but yeah, you're so right. Everything from the calls and the letters and fan mail, but then you're greeting, you're helping produce the contest, Beautiful Baby.
All
I
of
did that
it.
a few years with
Oh my
with
God,
Deborah
Beautiful
and Dave.
Baby. By the way, everybody thinks their baby is the most beautiful baby. That's
Albert. So many babies that were not beautiful. I'm like,
do you remember that?
Throw it away.
Sorry.
Sorry. But now, okay, we're gonna jump all around. But Albert, how long were you
Yes.
producing at Live with Regis and Kelly?
So
Do you
I
remember
was
how many
there
years?
6 years.
6 years.
I was working at the time for Todd Phillips. I was running development for him and
Yeah.
his production company downtown. And he was going to move the company out to LA. I had just moved back from LA. And then I had lunch with a friend of mine, Anne Marie, who was a producer at Live.
How funny.
And she was telling me about her crazy day and like how like George Clooney was there and an elephant came through the double doors and broke the doors.
Oh my God.
And she's like, "How was your day?" I'm like, "Well, I read 6 scripts and talked
Oh,
to 2 agents." And she's like, "Well, Gelman is looking to hire a producer, a freelance producer, if you're interested." And then cut
yeah.
to, I had a meeting with him and got the job. It was great.
Wow. On one of
Yeah.
the biggest talk shows still to this day
Biggest.
with Kelly and
Yeah.
Mark, and of
Yep.
course Albert's still working with Kelly and Mark. We'll talk about that in a bit. But so were you like a were you considered freelance your whole time there
Freelance.
or oh
Yep.
interesting. Okay. So
Freelance.
interesting.
And we were laughing because on Kelly's podcast, we had Michael Gelman on last year, and we
Yeah.
joked that everybody everyone has like a 3-week gig on that show
Yeah.
until,
But
until
honestly, you know what? That makes sense. I feel like, working in
yeah,
TV and really any gig, but especially TV film where like lots of big personalities, it might not be a
yep,
good fit. It totally makes sense to kind of have like a trial period and then to
totally.
sign whatever contract or whatever to like stay longer. It makes sense. But
Yeah.
that's
But no,
funny.
my
So
three
did you
weeks kept
know you
getting
would,
extended
so
to
you were
six
really just
years.
hired for a few weeks
Oh,
and
yeah,
then it,
3 weeks. Oh my
wow.
God. It was like a quick, and then I ended up staying on and then thinking this would just be like a fun thing to do for a little while. And then
Yeah.
there I was producing live TV. And listen, I don't have to tell you because you experienced it, but you have never lived until you are experiencing something live. At the time, there was a 0 second delay. You're holding
Wow.
up cue cards next to a camera that is being projected to millions and millions of people.
Mhm.
You're like, it's just happening. So, and then when you work on, TV shows and feature films, and you develop something that you may see on a screen in 3, 4, 5 years, and
Right.
here you're seeing something 24 hours later, it was just an adrenaline rush.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it's wild. It's
yeah, it's
amazing.
wild.
And yeah, very few people I think really think about that and could really handle that. I mean,
It's
yeah, but
it's
luckily,
stressful,
you're working with pros, both
right?
behind the camera, in front of the camera, and all these celebs that are, used to it. But yeah, did you ever work in any other talk shows or was Live the only one for you?
So I started out of college. I interned on the Gordon Elliott Show, which was like this show back in the day on CBS, and then
Okay.
the Rolanda Show, which was a Rolanda
Oh
Watts had a
yeah.
talk show. I did
Okay.
those for a year and a half or so, and then I said I need to move to California and start, get into like the real TV and film
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And then I flew out there with no job, no nothing. Stayed in a
Wow.
friend's apartment and did a bunch of like temp work from all these random jobs, which was great.
Of
And then
course.
ended up at ICM, which I still say, Mark, to me is probably one of the most important jobs I ever had was the year and a half I worked at that talent
That's
agency.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
grad school. I mean, it's grad school.
You're
It's
so
amazing.
right. Oh my gosh, what a great way to say it. It's grad school. That's like the
It's grad
real
school.
learning, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
learn. Where'd you go to school? Did you go to NYU?
I went to NYU, yeah.
Yeah, because you
But I
were you were
studied
born
computer
in New York,
science.
right? You're a New
Yeah.
Yorker, and then you went to California. Okay,
Yep.
so you studied computer science and not
Computer
like
science.
film, TV, acting, none of that
No,
stuff.
none of it.
Interesting.
At the
So what?
very end of my 4 years, they were starting a computer graphics department, which was kind of a merge between Tisch and the College of Arts and Science. And that was like when I first started coming alive. But
Wow.
then I realized quickly I just needed to graduate and get working. So
Yep.
the internships
Amen.
were like, yeah,
Hmm.
we, as you know, where you just feel so hands-on and it's so
Oh
much
my God,
more
get me out of this
what you want.
classroom and yeah,
Oh my God, couldn't
right?
wait.
Do you,
Yeah.
what internships did you do back then? Do you remember?
I did the Gordon Elliott
Oh, that was okay.
show.
Those were internships. Got it. Okay.
I feel like I don't that may have been my only main internship because then they kept bringing me back for the following semesters, which was
Oh,
great. And then they
cool.
hired me right out of college.
Right. Yeah.
It was
Okay. See,
awesome.
that's the dream. Yeah. Just like
Yeah.
stick with it, and there you go. Your first job.
Intern as much as you possibly can because
Oh,
people only want to work with the people that they like working with. So yeah.
absolutely. I used to remember how many internships I had. I could go through all the list, but like pretty much every semester, like except for maybe freshman year, because I went to Temple in Philly and then I transferred
Right.
to Fordham in New York. So, but like pretty much every semester in New York, different internship. And maybe one carried over for another one, but I just remember I was like, I want to, I interned
Yep.
obviously with Live, with Extra, with
Yep.
Fox Searchlight, like so a mixture of film, TV, One
Yep.
Life to Live, also
Oh my
ABC.
God.
So yeah, that was really fun. In the writing department, all these notes
Wow.
of the
Oh my
years of
God. Epic.
character stuff.
You
I mean,
got to
epic.
experience that. That's
And
epic.
and I was never really a soap opera guy, but I knew how obviously important and powerful that show, all those shows were, and
Yep.
so totally. Oh, I completely agree. Intern. If you're not interning, and you want to
Yeah.
work in this kind of field, I mean,
That's the only way in.
right?
I
Especially
think
if you don't
so.
know anyone, if like, your parents aren't someone special,
Yep.
you got to intern. Yeah. So then,
Totally.
so then you go to school in New York. So then you just decide I want to go to LA, and you didn't have a
Yep.
job lined up. You
No,
just like,
nothing.
what'd your
Tense.
parents think?
I thought I was crazy. My dad was like, "Where the fuck are you?" Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, do it.
Where the fuck are you going? My mom, my Italian American parents were like, "You're going where?"
Wow.
And I just went, and they, of course, everybody came to visit. My parents would come, my sister, all my cousins, but I just knew that there was a chapter in my life that I needed to spend out there, and I went and
Yeah.
did it. And
Wow.
for every 6 months, I would hit this. I can't stand living out here. I need to move back. And then that just kept extending and extending. And then I got a bunch of really great jobs, which we can
Yeah.
get
Good
to.
gigs.
And finally, I just hit the wall, and 4 years later, moved back. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And you haven't really moved back to LA at all. You've been a New Yorker
no,
since. Okay.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They're
I
very
decided.
different.
Someone told me right before I moved back, you should live in the city you're happiest landing in.
That's
And
nice.
every time I land in New York, I like come alive. Like I look at the
Yeah.
city, I'm so excited. And then that same Memorial Day weekend, I flew back to LA and I looked at the Hollywood sign and started crying.
Oh.
I'm like, this is my sign. Get the fuck out of
Oh,
here.
yeah, you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a weird anyone who likes New York does not really like LA,
Yeah.
in my
It's tough.
opinion. Like I was way more New York. LA, you get swept away with, of course, the history and the cool glitz and all that fun stuff, but to
Yeah.
live there day to day, oh, I was
Nope.
depressed. Just for my very short time, just a couple weeks living there for a
How
little
long were you
bit.
out there?
I was only there for 3 weeks, just as a
Oh,
little
wow.
test. I did
Okay.
like a little, this was actually, yeah, this was after my live internship. I went out for this little acting program when I was like, let me see if I still want to try this. And it just made me want to get back to New York right away.
Yeah.
Like, so
Oh, God.
very
Yeah.
short little blip, but I just kind of knew like, man, I didn't have a rental car. So that was also a
Oh,
mistake. What was I
yeah.
thinking?
No,
I was
not
taking
in
the bus
LA.
hours to the beach. I'm just like,
No.
I didn't think this through. Yeah. But so you get the job at ICM. Do you remember what
Yep.
kind of things were you doing at ICM?
So they put me on a desk. This agent was Ben. His name was Ben Press. He's now a manager, and he was in the motion picture talent department. And they put me on while his assistant was out. And the assistant ended up not coming back. And then I ended up getting the job full time. And Mark, I mean, the language that you learn, the yes means no, the no means yes, I'm telling my client this, but the casting director really told me that. It's just wild. Like
Yeah.
and then the hierarchy of the industry and like who you're talking to and who you have to go through to get to that person and really understanding it. It's just, you can't learn that anywhere else. It's just the
Yeah.
on the job experience, but it was wild. I mean, the shit that went down when I was there, and I'm like, holy shit, that just happened.
Right.
And
Oh,
I,
yeah. You
yeah.
probably saw some things thrown or doors slammed, or I don't know. Maybe not.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
there were screams
Yeah,
occasionally,
I
but
would
it
think
was,
so.
it was,
But it's
it was
funny because
intense.
even from my years in casting, like I've never, had to book anyone of that level at an ICM, but you're so right. Like there's a whole
Yeah.
pecking order of like agents and
Yep.
assistants and and it's like a secret. Even if you work in the
Yeah.
industry, it's like, oh, I don't really know anything about that. That's like a,
Right.
a fortress, right? So
Yeah.
you were able to really, and you were there a year and a
Oh, and you're
half.
on all the calls and you're in the meetings often, listening in or watching what's going on. And it's an amazing chance to really learn a lot. And yet you have this so much tea that you get from those jobs also.
God.
A lot
Did
of
you
tea.
probably had to sign, did you ever have to sign like a
Yeah.
non-disclosure? Oh, I'm
Oh yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wild, Albert. Okay. So you're there
Watching
for a
assistants get
while.
fired
Oh,
and then sent down to HR and then being hired an hour later and brought back. I mean, it
oh,
was,
really?
oh yeah,
Did
it
you
was
ever get fired?
crazy. No,
I
I
can't
never, I
imagine.
never
No.
got fired.
Yeah. Wow. But I bet those days were long. Were you working
They were
like
long. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you always had to be there before. You always had to, as the assistant, you always had to roll calls,
Yep.
but as the agent was driving in, and then you had to stay to the very end until they got home,
Oh
and yeah, it was
God.
crazy.
Oh my
My favorite
God.
was the where the New York was trying to nail people down on either coast, and then the New York people would call early in the morning so that they didn't
Uh-huh.
have to speak to the person, and they would just
Oh,
leave word. It was always a game. It was crazy.
that's so, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're really the
Oh
middleman,
yeah,
like taking calls, like because yeah, they hate each other. Oh yeah, because some of these
yeah.
agents have such attitude. Oh my
Oh yeah.
God. It's like, do
Yep.
you want the gig or not? Like you gotta be a little nice. Come on now. Wow.
I
So
was
you're
just telling this story, a related story that
yeah.
because Kelly was interviewing I forget on her podcast. It may have been Henry Winkler,
Oh,
and she was talking about they were talking about Scott Rudin, and
no.
I said, "Oh my God, I almost was his assistant in
Wow.
L.A." And they were like, she was like, "Well, what happened?" I said, "Well, I went for like 4 interviews and I got the job,
Wow.
and I was about to take it, and then I walked into this agent at the Times office in LA who I knew years ago had worked for him too.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, I'm about to accept this job offer. I just wanted to ask your opinion on it. And he just stopped. He took his headset off and he said, Albert, life is too short. And
Wow.
then, yeah. And then I walked out and didn't take the job and then got the job that I wanted about a month later. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, good. You dodged a bullet, right?
Dodged a bullet.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. So sometimes you got to take advice like that, right? And be like,
Oh,
ooh,
yeah.
even if you feel like you could do it, right? It's like, no, no,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
forget it. Life is too short. Oh my
Yep.
God. We'll be right back.
All her life, Leanne Watson has done the right things. Her only ticket out of town is the one scholarship that goes to her school's top student. All she needs is an A in history. There's just one problem. The history teacher.
Mrs. Tingle, she hates me.
She hates everyone. She even hates me.
Whenever I walk in the room, she's lying in wait, just ready to rip skin and draw blood.
Okay, so then you're out there, you're at ICM. So then when do you get into the Kevin Williamson world? Because as you can tell,
So
I'm a
that
fan.
same
I'm
agent.
wearing like my
Oh,
Scream and
no
I Know What You
way.
Did Last Summer t-shirt, like
My
big,
God. He's
huge
in
fan of
Wilmington
his.
right now.
Yeah,
You know,
what
these,
is, oh, he's Scream 7.
hello, he's directing it.
Oh
I
my
know.
God.
I'm going to
If
go
I
down
could
there
be
to,
a, you're gonna go down there?
I
Oh my
want to
God.
go
I'm
down.
gonna start crying. You're gonna go down? Albert,
Yeah, I
that's
have to.
amazing. That's amazing. I love it.
I
And how
know.
perfect back in Wilmington where you guys were making
I mean,
Dawson's Creek.
hello.
Is he from Wilmington? Is that why
He is from the Outer Banks area.
Outer
He's not
Banks?
from
Yeah.
Wilmington.
So
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, right there. So yeah, that's why he's oh my God,
I
that's
know.
amazing. You're gonna go. I
I
am
can't
so
wait.
over the moon. I'm so excited. Whenever people are like, you really like want to watch another Scream movie? I'm like, I'm gonna watch them until the day I
Are you
die. I want to
kidding?
see
They're epic.
Ev and
Each
Courtney
one.
when they are gray and like I want to check in with my friends every few years. Yes, absolutely. Let the ghost faces just
Of
continue.
course.
Oh my God. So of course, Scream was huge, and Kevin Williamson
Yep.
now becomes a big, huge,
Huge deal.
in
And
demand guy, right?
so he just got the at the time it was called Killing Mrs. Tingle gig
Okay.
and I saw an email that came out at ICM from one of the agents saying that one of our clients is looking to hire an on-set assistant if you know of anybody.
Oh
And
wow.
they didn't say who, and I walked down to the assistant's desk and I said, "Who is this client?" And he's like, "I'm not allowed to tell you, but it's Kevin Williamson." And I said, "Well, shut the fuck up. And whoever else resume you're getting, you have to throw out and you have to
Yes.
get a meeting. I need to meet this man. He's
Yeah.
an icon."
Yeah.
Um, and he set up a meeting for me with Kevin, and I went to the Sony lot. And I will never forget like walking up this long metal staircase into his corner office. And
Oh
there's
my.
Kevin in like khaki shorts and a white t-shirt. And we had like the most incredible interview.
Oh.
And basically he hired me on the spot. It was unbelievable.
Oh my God. This is amazing. And you guys were probably similar in age. Wasn't he pretty young? I mean,
Yeah, Kevin was
like,
born in 65 and I was born in 73. So
okay, yeah.
what is, yeah,
Not like
not that
eight
far
years
off.
apart or so.
Yeah,
Yeah, right?
yeah,
Wow.
yep.
So okay, so you basically met him for Killing Mrs. Tingle before you
Killing
worked
Mrs.
on
Tingle.
Dawson's Creek and all that. Is
Yep.
that
Oh yeah.
so this was what, 97?
97, 98. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
97. Sorry, you're right. 97.
Wow. So this was like, yeah, right after the success of Scream and all that.
Yep.
Wow.
And season one of The Creek had already been out. So people
Okay.
were losing their minds. And
Yes. Oh my God. Me, I was one of them. Are you kidding?
I
Dawson's
mean,
Creek was huge.
hello.
The WB Buffy and Dawson's Creek. I
Are
mean,
you
I was in
kidding?
heaven. I mean, I was
Iconic.
only like, what was I when Dawson's Creek premiered? I've talked about it on this show with friends that were also diehards. I was like 11. So, I mean, I was
Oh,
young, but like, I knew about Kevin Williamson. Like, I knew the creator of Scream is doing a WB show. Like,
I mean, come
sign
on.
me up,
I
glued to the
know.
screen. Mom, get out of my way. Like, so, okay. So then you sign up to be, so
Yep.
you basically were meeting him to be his assistant on Killing Mrs. Tingle. Is that?
His second assistant on set. He had this guy that he went to college with that was like his main assistant who just wanted to work like normal business hours.
Okay.
And Kevin clearly needed somebody to be there until like the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah.
What was scary as shit, but now in retrospect, it was like one of the coolest things ever. Week one, he said, I need you to go to it wasn't Culver City. I need you to go to the Dawson's office and sit in on the writer's room and take notes for me because I can't be there today. And the writers are going to pitch you a lot of story ideas and just write them down and just come back and bring them back to me.
Wow.
At the time, I'm like, me? Like this guy, the one you just hired?
Yeah.
And I would go and I would sit, and for weeks on end at that point, they would bring me in to just kind of sit there and listen to what was going on. I would take notes from him and they would pitch ideas to me. And I was just writing this down earlier when I was thinking about it, but I will never forget Mike White, who would he had these t-shirts that had iron-on letters for every, one was said Monday, one said Tuesday, one said Wednesday,
Oh
and he
my
would wear
God.
them every day of the week. It killed me.
Wow.
But
Yeah, a
Mike
lot
would
of people
like,
don't know that Mike White wrote on Dawson's
yep,
for what, at least a season, maybe
at
more?
least a season.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And he would pitch me stuff and he would say, Albert, don't fuck this up, Albert. You need to tell him exactly, like in a joking way. You
Yeah.
need to pitch it back to me exactly like I pitched it to you. And I'm
How
like, oh my God,
funny.
Mike White.
So
I mean,
which is common, even though the show was shooting in North Carolina, were all the writers based in LA? Is that how it
yeah, all
worked?
the writers
Yeah.
were in LA. Yep.
Hmm.
And Kevin was still very involved. Like he juggled so much and was so hands-on and worked until 1 o'clock in the morning. And the minute he would rap on Tingle or even interspersed within it, he was constantly doing Creek work. I mean, he did it all, and it was kind of remarkable
I
for someone
believe
like
it.
me to watch that. I mean, it also just there is no more creative, successful person like him that I've ever worked with. I mean, the guy just spewed story out and could write a scene that would just blow your mind in a matter of minutes. And yeah, I would watch it happen. It was
Oh my
crazy.
God, Albert, I'm like holding back tears. This is amazing. This is awesome. So yeah,
Yeah.
because so he's working on Tingle while dealing, yeah, with Dawson stuff. What else was he working on? I'm sure he was working on other stuff too at the time. Like Scream
After
one and
that, I
two
think,
were
yeah,
done. I
yeah,
know was done, and then he didn't work. Like I remember hearing he wasn't so involved with Scream 3 because he was busy with these things, and then
yep.
Wasteland, the other show that
Wasteland,
you
which
worked
we
on,
did. Yep.
right?
Yep.
So yeah, wow, juggling a lot of things, and then same with Katie Holmes, of course, with Dawson
I know.
and Tingle.
Yep.
I guess they weren't shooting at the same time. That'd be insane,
No, but
especially on movie
Katie, I have
costs.
to give it to her. Like she, of all the cast members, would really maximize that window of time. Like when they were wrapped on a Friday, she would get on a plane, she would fly somewhere to shoot on a movie for a day or two and then fly back and be on set Monday morning. Like she did not waste that opportunity. Like and I watched it happen. I mean, and it wasn't the case with all of them. I think they thought, well, we're here and we want to, dedicate ourselves to this, but she did a lot and pulled a lot
Yeah,
off. Yeah.
absolutely. Oh yeah, this was like she was busy. It's actually
Busy.
amazing that she seems to be like totally okay now because like
Yeah.
all these starlets, Sarah Michelle Gellar, like and Michelle Williams, like they were all so busy and so in demand with movies and shows. It's really wild. Like you hear like Nev Campbell shooting Party of Five and then Scream 2 like on the weekends and like no
I
sleep.
know.
It's just amazing. No one like had a breakdown that we know
I
of.
know. Well, think about it. She was young, and they were all young.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that made Dawson's to me so special was that they lived in a bubble down there. So you're in Wilmington, North Carolina. You're not on Sunset Boulevard, running into agents or running into other actors. Like you're living in like a little bubble.
Yeah.
And which is kind of what made that show so magical, is that production lived in this small town and the actors lived in a small town, and they had no Hollywood influence other than when we would come down there or when they would jet off to California for meetings. But it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so did you work on Dawson season 1, or by the time you met
2.
him, 2 and 3, right? You worked on a couple seasons.
Yeah.
Wow. So were you on set much, or were you more in LA and then you would
we
go
would
to
fly,
set occasionally?
We would fly to set all the time, and I'm still very close with Julie and with Greg.
Wow.
And it would be the
TV
4
legends.
of us. It would be
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. Well, the 3 of them.
Oh
Kevin,
my God.
Julie, Greg, and me, the 4 of us were constantly flying to Charlotte, like LA to Charlotte, and then a puddle jumper from Charlotte to Wilmington. Like that trip happened I mean, definitely monthly, if not more often sometimes. It was a lot.
Wow.
And we have this, Greg and I still have this iconic story that I will run in. Well, I'll get to the punchline of what he does now, but we were in Charlotte and we were waiting to fly home, and Julian and Kevin were booked in first class, and Greg and I were on the wait list. And they and I went up to check on it and then sat back down. And then like a minute later, the woman says, "Will Albert Bianchini please come up to the gate?" And Greg stood up in the airport and screamed, "Berlanti comes before Bianchini."
Oh, wow. Oh my God. That's so funny.
And to this day, I'll run into people and they'll say, Greg Berlanti wanted me to let you know that Berlanti comes before Bianchini.
That is so cute. Oh my God. Years ago, Greg Berlanti did Political Animals, the Sigourney Weaver show. Am I right? Do you remember that?
I believe so, yeah.
I think he did that limited series, really good.
Yep.
I worked on an episode just like as like a featured extra because they were shooting in Philly, where I'm from. And I remember seeing him, and of course I already kind of knew some cool stuff he had done. And like, so seeing him, I don't know if he was directing, but he was in the chair, and he was at least like EPing. That was really cool to see.
Did you see Fly Me to the Moon, his latest movie?
I haven't. So did he write and direct, or just direct? I need to look that
direct.
up. He directed
Mark,
it. I haven't seen it. It looks good.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
A huge movie. He invited us to go to the premiere in New York, and it was just mind-blowing how, I mean, the guy is, he was able to pull that off. And
big stars,
he's an incredible
Channing,
director.
Scarlett, Apple TV, right? It'll probably come to Apple at some point, right?
Yes, it will.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's
it looked
a great
really
movie.
Good. Good for him. Yeah, is he doing any other TV right now? I'm trying to remember. He's worked on so many
Oh my
things.
God, he works. He's got a million shows going on.
I'm sure.
At any given moment.
Right, and Julie's. I mean, the Vampire Diaries because Julie and Kevin worked on that. I think, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Huge. That was so much fun to watch. Right.
Welcome to the WB Wednesday night.
Tonight, a new season begins.
Where were you last night?
Dawson.
Everything's different now. You've got Joey, and our friendship, it just can't compare with what you got.
I love him, and I want him back. And we're gonna get him back for you.
I know.
So back on Dawson's. So Kevin was EP. What were Julie and Greg? Were they writers or producers, or were they also
Greg
EPs?
was a writer.
Okay.
Greg was a young writer on that show. Julie's position was at the production company, so she was at Outer Banks.
Okay.
She ran development and production, so that's how she was involved in the series, but also very hands-on.
Yeah.
It was a very cool family environment that they made. And then when we would go to Wilmington, we would like hire a DJ and throw a party for everybody. And it was cool because, it's when you were in this room where they would be in LA breaking story, and to not see it happen, to be able to fly there and watch it was amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Such a big show. Big deal.
Huge.
Albert. So then, so you worked on Tingle first and then jumped over to Dawson's. Now Tingle, let's talk about Tingle for a second. It just turned 25.
What an iconic movie.
Such a special, like I know it gets some flack, but I know there were some changes that had to happen, of course, in 1999 with Columbine, right? Like we're saying it was called Killing Mrs. Tingle for a while, but then it had to be changed.
And then it turned into teaching.
And I guess, as you guys were working on it, it sounds like it was going to be a little darker, a little more R-rated, but they had to sort of soften it, of course, because of what was happening in the news, right?
Yeah.
What was that like from your perspective with Kevin? I'm sure there was a lot of pressure, and with the Weinsteins,
Well, I
what was
mean,
all
during
that
the
like?
production, it was Killing Mrs. Tingle while we were filming it. And I
Yeah.
think, the tone of the show was pretty spot on.
Mhm.
Tone of the movie, sorry, was pretty
Mhm.
spot on and didn't really change. It wasn't until we got into post-production that became the issue. And like, how do we then work with what we have? And do we have to do reshoots? And,
Yeah.
but no, I think it was so it was kind of compartmentalized because while we were in the midst of it filming, none of that was affecting anything.
What is this?
Oh, just Tingle's final exam. Tempting, isn't it?
Slither away. Let's go.
The smartest girl in school caught cheating. It'll be scandalous.
I'm innocent.
Even the innocent sometimes burn at the stake. Now get out of my house.
Not so fast.
What do you think you're doing?
You can't keep treating people the way you do.
No?
Don't be stupid. Put it down.
You lose, Mr. Turner.
And then Helen Mirren, my God, what a,
Wow.
I mean,
and she was new for me, for kids like me. I was like 12 by the time
Yeah.
this came out. Like, I had seen her in like at the video store, like Prime Suspect, like a British
Ugh.
crime show. But I was like, what's Prime Suspect? What is this? So she was a little new for me. But
yes.
I mean, I was just rewatching it and like,
I mean-
what? I mean, I feel like, obviously, Meryl as Miranda in Devil Wears Prada, iconic. But I
Coming
feel like
back.
I feel like she had to watch a little bit of Teaching Mrs. Tingle. There's like
I
some
mean,
same DNA.
You're
between those
100%
two,
correct.
right? Right?
Wait, can I tell you a funny Helen story? So
Tell me.
I
Oh my God,
I
please.
bought Kevin a laptop. Like, back in the day, Apple laptops were brand new. And Helen was like, "What's that, Albert?" And oh, it's Kevin's new Mac laptop. It was those big like clamshell
Was it the
like
colorful
laptops.
ones? Like the
It
blue
wasn't the
or-
colorful ones. It was the big thick black ones with
Yes,
the
I had
yeah.
that. Oh my God, you curved. Oh, iconic.
Yes,
Yeah, like Carrie
curved.
Bradshaw style. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure, right? Uh-huh.
So Helen said she wanted one, so I bought her a laptop, and then I would spend like her breaks in her trailer with her, teaching her how to use while she's dressed as
Oh,
as
well, yeah,
Tingle.
while she's Mrs. Tingle. Oh my God, that's
Teaching her how to
amazing.
use this laptop. So put that away, and like
Oh.
a couple of years ago or whenever I was at Live, sorry.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It was after Live. I happened to be there, and she was a guest on the show, and I had gone with Kevin a few times to see her and things that she had been in
Yeah.
in New York. And I went into the room to say hi to her, and she stopped me mid-sentence, and she turned to her rep and she goes, "Albert bought me my first laptop." Like, how do you remember
amazing.
that?
That's so well. Yeah, you taught her. You were
I guess.
updating her into 1998, 1999. That's amazing.
Isn't that funny?
I love that so much. Was she awesome to work with? Were
She's
you on
she was
set much
amazing.
for
Oh
Tingle?
yeah, the whole time, the whole
Yeah.
shoot. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, what
It
was
was
it
a
like
great
making that?
shoot.
It had to be so fun because it really is. It's very much a thriller, but it is a comedy. I mean,
Comedy.
she's got a lot of villainous, dark stuff going on, but the lines are. I mean, Kevin Williamson's
Ugh.
dialogue. Oh my God,
Yes,
were
I
you reading
know.
the script and just like, this is
Freaking
just so
out.
fun, right?
And like we would get the sides the day, the night before, and I would always have to get them ready for Kevin to have, and then I would just reread them again and thinking, oh my God. I just remember every night, like putting it together, his packet, thinking,
Right.
this is just, I can't wait to see her do it. I mean, she's just an assassin. The woman
Yes.
is,
Even
yeah,
just
she's-
to stare, just to glare.
All of it.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
From Kevin Williamson,
Mrs. Tingle. Oh my God.
We should give her mouth to mouth.
I'm not gonna do it.
okay, a wicked film.
Watch your head.
Sorry. What do we do now? When she wakes up, we'll reason with her.
And then the other
Yeah.
three leads, Katie
Yep.
and Barry and Marissa.
Barry and Marisa.
Oh
I
my
know.
gosh. Oh my God. Marisa gets to do so. I forgot how much fun she's
Yeah,
having.
she's
in
a
that
lot of
movie.
fun with it.
Great casting. And then she stuck around with you guys
Yep.
for Wasteland, right?
Yep, she sure
following
did.
Year or later that year. Wow.
Yeah. We had a
So-
lot of fun. We had a night. I was thinking of this earlier. Also, one night we wrapped early and we all went to this karaoke bar in Culver City, and the whole cast,
Yeah.
most of the crew, Kathy Conrad, and like Katie, Julie Plec, and Kathy and I sang Love Shack, and we had this like crazy B-52s moment that
That's
we've
amazing.
tried recreating like once or twice more, and it
Oh,
wasn't as
yeah.
successful.
Yeah,
but that was
right.
great.
You can't
Yeah.
recreate it. Oh, that's so
No.
special. Yeah, what an exciting time. I mean,
Yeah.
I say it a lot on this show when I have various friends talking about, old movies, especially of the late 90s. Like teen focused stuff was like the top, like
Yes.
And because of Clueless and Scream, and Titanic, even with these young stars, like young adults, it's different now. Where you get a little bit of everything. Everyone wants to see everything, but back then, the Katie Holmes, she was maybe 20, 21. They were the most in demand. Teens
and the dialogue,
powerful.
with Dawson's, it was such a incredible thing to read this adult dialogue coming out of these teenage characters' mouths, and you're like, my God, it's just. And I think so many people loved it because they felt like we feel like we're being seen. Our intelligence is being seen. You're not mocking me. You're showing what I'm capable of. And the show had such an impact on people.
Oh my God, it was a big deal for sure, and
Yeah.
just an effect on teen drama, TV dramas, right? Absolutely.
Yes.
Was Kevin so Teaching Mrs. Tingle was his directorial debut? So
Yes.
he was obviously a great writer. Was he stressed? Was he feeling the pressure at all as a director?
He had an amazing, and I'm blanking on who it was. He had an incredible deep director of photography that worked with him, that had done a lot of films in the past.
Yeah.
And they worked very closely on what they were doing and really spent a lot of time rehearsing and planning for the upcoming days. And so I think going into it, he felt pretty confident because he was so prepared. He was always prepared on set.
That's right.
And then you have an actress like Helen, and then you have Katie and all these other, who, they were young, but they had already done all these shows and already had so much on-set experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a lot of pros thrown into this environment at once. And you just, for someone as young as I was to watch it and think, wow, they nailed that in very few takes, and then we're moving on. I'm like, it's just incredible.
That's the benefit of doing TV, right? TV, whether it's a soap opera or a scripted primetime show, it's not like you have tons of days to shoot the scene.
Nope.
You got to get it done in a week, right? Each episode is roughly a week. So that's amazing. And then also just the supporting cast. You had icons like Vivica A. Fox, Molly Ringwald, Michael McKean, Leslie Ann Warren. You guys got a sick
it was
cast.
Major.
Right?
It was pretty major.
Wow.
I actually got Rolanda Watts, who was the talk show host that I told you I worked for. They needed a newscaster to do some news reporting of something. And so I called up Rolanda and I'm like, any chance you'd want to do this? It's a Kevin Williamson movie. Not even thinking that she's going to be doing us a favor. And she's like, Albert, of course I want to be.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So I didn't even realize, she has like a little cameo?
A quick little scene that she's in.
That's so great. Oh my God.
I'm thinking she's, I know. Anyway, that was my one contribution.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sure you did way more than that.
I think every Joey has a Dawson and every Dawson has a Joey.
I hope so.
Okay, Jen's a cheerleader and Jack's on the football team. I got Zane and everyone else went crazy.
They were casting the first gay character for Dawson's. And I was at the office, and they handed me a VHS tape with Kerr Smith on, and they said, play this for Kevin. We need to sign off and we need to hear what he thinks of him. So I remember driving it over, and I'm like, I need you to come into your trailer for 5 minutes. They need to approve this and get the deal going. So I brought him into his trailer, sat down, and we played Kerr's on the VHS tape in his trailer. And he was like, oh my God, this guy is unbelievable. Yes, of course. And then, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that moment.
And that was on the set of Tingle. Yeah.
That was on the set of Tingle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Albert, this is so cool. You're just delivering even more than I could.
I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I'm missing. I feel like I wrote so much stuff down.
So special. And also, as a kid, everyone loved Joshua Jackson. What a babe. Still to this day, but also Pacey.
Still.
But Kerr Smith, I kind of forgot. It took me a few years, a little later in life, looking back at the show, oh yeah, what a babe. And of course, you worked on season 3. So season 3, the finale, if I remember correctly, was the first gay kiss on TV, which is insane that it took so long in the year.
Isn't that crazy? I know.
Right? We had to wait until 2000, right? But the first, where we actually see Kerr Smith kiss, I forget the other actor's name, but that was a big moment.
I mean, huge moment.
And you were part of that. You were involved. Oh my God. Wow.
And I laugh now because there's so much talk about casting gay actors in gay roles, and Kerr was not a gay actor, and he was perfect for it. I mean, I couldn't think of anybody that would have done a better job in it, and just he brought so much heart and so much warmth to that role, and I don't know, it was pretty amazing.
You bring up a great point, because also at that time, it actually made the most sense for not a stereotypically, obviously gay actor to play that, because it was still, as we're saying, like this was the first kiss, gay kiss on camera in 2000. So it's like you kind of had to just, pace yourself, so it makes sense that someone like him, pretty masculine, would rope people in, and then you could start to kind of open the doors for different kinds of, actually queer actors, right? So it makes total sense for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to show you. Yeah, I want to show you that I can, and that I'm not afraid to. Oh, hell, this. Jack. No. Hey, look, I know there's people around, but who cares, right? I mean, that's the whole point. I finally have the courage to do this.
For 20 years, she's terrorized her students.
What I have planned for you is a fate worse than death.
This year, they're going to give her a lesson. Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
I mean, we just had so much, as you know, on a movie set, like we had so much downtime. Like I would be hanging out with Katie at the craft service table, like shoving pretzels in our mouth. Yeah. And she was like, they're going to kill me because of my outfit I have to fit into. But
well, she does have to, disrobe. Her and Barry had, I remember as a kid, I was like, whoa, ripping shirts and everything. So, oh my God, I can only
you'll love this, Mark. Wait, this is a great story of Tingle. I forgot this. I went down to Laguna with a bunch of my gay friends, and Katie and Barry came down and stayed the night, and we took them to the gay bar in Laguna Beach. Fuck, what was the name? It was like, was it Boom Boom or was it the Boom? Whatever it was. Oh, here we are. And then Katie Holmes and Barry Watson walk into this gay bar, and the guys' jaws just dropped to the floor. We're seeing him in there.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, they were big WB stars at the time.
Huge.
Right? Oh
huge.
My God, that's so fun. Yeah, Katie, they both seem amazing. But yeah, Katie, I just get the vibe. I mean, you're still friendly with her, right?
We're still really good friends.
I love that.
I'm going to her show. Her show is opening soon. She's in
Is she on
tech
Broadway
right
again?
now. Our Town.
Oh, she's doing Our Town. Of course.
Yes,
Classic.
yes.
That's going to be so great. Oh my God.
Yep.
I love that she does theater, because she was doing All My Sons. I think with Diane Wiest, and this was maybe 2008, 2009. So soon after, I was interning at Live, but I was working at Extra, and this was back when she was married to Tom Cruise. So of course they were the talk of the town. So I was paid one night with the Extra camera to record the doors and just get Katie going into the theater and out. I remember I went to Junior's for dinner. Extra was paying for my dinner, so I had to get B-roll of her getting out of her car. I mean, the stupidest stuff, but get B-roll of her going into the stage door, and then 2.5 hours later, or whatever, wait and be there with the paparazzi to get her. The dumbest thing, but I got paid to do it. It was Katie. I was part of the problem probably, but that's amazing. So you're gonna go see her on stage soon. That's great.
I'm gonna go see her. Yeah, we were just texting the other day because I'm having dinner with a mutual friend next week, and I wanted her to come, but they're having busy. Oh my God, she's busy. Rehearsals. So we're gonna try to meet up. Like in a break of hers, maybe this weekend at some point.
My gosh. Well, tell her that we love her. We have loved her for years, and that Teaching Mrs. Tingle still slays. Girl.
Still slays.
Now tell me, Albert. So I know Kevin kind of stopped being so hands-on with Dawson's Creek. Was that like after season 3? Do you remember like what?
I'm trying to remember what season it was right around when I left working. I had moved back to New York pretty soon after, but he wasn't as hands-on on the Creek anymore. He had Wasteland. He had a lot of other projects that were going on at the time. And then Greg at Berlanti, as you know, became showrunner of Dawson's, and then ran that triumphantly to the end.
Yeah, a few more seasons.
A few more seasons. But no, Kevin was on that show for several seasons and clearly, set the mold for it. And I laugh every time someone brings up, that show coming back or people trying to rekindle it. And there's no world in which it exists in a period of time that it should just not be remade
right. And that kind of drama at that time. I mean, what do you do? I guess it's if we reboot it, like let's say if it's like a sequel, what is it now about some of their kids? I mean, I would watch it, but
Right.
that's a risk, right? Or if you just
It's
straight
a
up
risk.
remake it, like what they did with like Party of Five and Raw, like some of these shows are just
Right.
completely remade. That's I think even riskier because now you're
I mean,
just
Scream is like there's a clear reasons and why that can,
oh yeah,
multiple
it
chapters
can
of that can go
continue
on
because there are so
forever.
many copycats. Oh yeah, certain things for
Yeah.
sure, and horror is always a
Right.
little easier to come up with ways to continue it. Drama, that's
Yeah.
tough. Once
It's
you tell the
tough.
story, and that finale for Dawson's
Oh
was, I
my
mean,
God.
oh my God, I will always associate Jules' song "My Hands" with the finale of Dawson's Creek, and poor Michelle Williams dying.
James Vanderbeek, Katie Holmes, Joshua Jackson, Michelle Williams, Kerr Smith, Meredith Monroe, Brittany Daniel.
I make you nervous.
You make me confused.
I'm just a girl standing in a janitor's closet, asking you to kiss her.
An all-new season of Dawson's Creek.
There was a screening party for the finale at the 60 Thompson Hotel. We rented out the penthouse.
Oh, and
we
you
were
there?
everybody was there, and
That's
it was
sweet. Like a
it was
reunion
pretty
and a
cool.
goodbye. Oh
Oh my
man.
God. And we all watched it live as it was happening. It was
Wow.
unbelievable.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, I remember watching that live. That was a bit 2-hour finale. I was like, wow,
I
this is it.
mean,
Right?
this is it.
But nothing beats those early seasons. I loved the high school years. I mean, because I mean, and my friend Kate, who has been on the show, we looked a little like Dawson and Joey. So in middle
Oh
school,
my God, stop
so
it.
many people would be like, "Oh, there's Dawson and Joey," and we did the plays. So like, I kind of looked a little like him, and oh my God. So yeah, so we were all over that show for sure.
What's the matter, Mrs. Tingle? You getting a little scared yourself?
Oh, no, dear. Things are just starting to get fun.
Kevin was the reason I extended it as long as I did. If it wasn't for him and that relationship, I mean, we got very, very close. Like he and I were brothers and still are, but
That's amazing.
but we spent every minute of every day together. And it was like one of these things where I'm like, how do I leave this job and this man who means so much to me? And it was a very tough decision, but I had come back to New York and gone with a bunch of my friends to Provincetown. And it was literally a weekend where not one person asked me about work, gave two shits about what I was doing.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my God, I could live like a balanced life. Like I could live this life where people don't care what I do for a living and aren't constantly, asking me about work.
Right.
And so I
couldn't get away from it out there, I'm sure.
I felt very suffocated out there.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, that's when I told you about that flight that I flew back to LA. I looked at the Hollywood sign. I started crying.
Oh, yeah.
I went into work the next day. I said, Kevin, I need to talk to you. I shut the door and he looked at me and he said, "You're moving to New York, aren't you?"
He knew it.
And I said, he knew it. I said, "I am." And then I started to tear up and he said, "Listen to me. If New York could do for me what I know it will do for you, I would move with you."
Wow. Yeah.
I thought that sentence was so powerful. And it was basically him saying it's okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I had I didn't want to leave him. It was tough.
Right. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's so interesting comparing that time to now, because I'm sure now where we all can do this online and, maybe he could have moved, but back then,
No.
I'm sure LA, he was just stuck there. Like
He's
where
immersed in them and he's
right?
needed. I mean, yeah. And all the hands-on stuff that he does in the room and, pre-pandemic when the rooms were actual writer rooms.
Right.
There was he was there. He was very hands-on. He never got him, and that's what I don't know. I just admired about him is if he was involving himself in something, it was really he needed to commit to being there for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like someone that just threw their name on a project. It had to mean something to him, and he had to know that he could be involved with it. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Hey, Rewinders. I hope you're loving this conversation as much as I am. Here are messages from other fans of Teaching Mrs. Tingle. My friends Katie Bruno, Tom Rhodes, and Rudy Valdez.
This is so Jerry Springer.
I just rewatched Teaching Mrs. Tingle, and it's funny, I told Mark I hadn't seen it, but upon rewatch, I realized I had. It's just literally probably been about 25 years since I've seen it. So it was a very fun rewatch. It definitely was a good time. I loved Helen Mirren. I mean, How can you not? She is so deliciously evil as Mrs. Tingle. Great supporting cast, of course, our hot, WB actors, Katie Holmes and Barry Watson, but also great supporting cast. I forgot Molly Ringwald, Jeffrey Tambor, Vivica A. Fox, just really great supporting cast. It's definitely a ridiculous movie with a ridiculous ending. I mean, come on, they all would be in prison, but okay, let's suspend reality. But it was a really fun movie. And honestly, I have to say I was glued to the screen figuring out what's going to happen next because I truly could not remember. So that was good. I just wish there was more with the supporting cast because they had such a strong cast and I would have loved to see more of them. And I would have loved to delve more into Mrs. Tingle's past and figuring out why she was the way she was. But in general, a fun rewatch.
The very last true Kevin Williamson movie.
I just remember talking about this movie with a friend in high school when it was announced, and we were really excited about it because, Kevin Williamson was going to direct, and he did Scream, and I know he did last summer, and we were just pumped for it. And then, of course, all the things that happened with the delays and title change and change up of the movie itself happened. But we still loved it. I remember watching it with my friend, and we enjoyed it, had a great time. She mostly went for Barry Watson, not gonna lie. You need eye candy like that. But I was going for Helen Mirren, She was like this, esteemed actress who was doing, a light horror thriller movie. And, we all liked Katie Holmes. But my real joy was seeing some of the character actors pop up, Vivica A. Fox showing up, doing her thing, and of course Molly Ringwald. Molly Ringwald was in this movie, and every time she popped up on screen, it was so fun to see and such a good time. So even though both their parts were small, I loved seeing them on the screen. And so it was a fun movie. I still enjoy it to this day. And also, let's talk about the music. Like, this music soundtrack for this film is just a time capsule for its era. I found myself Shazamming the tracks as I watched it so I can play them later. So that's the impact it has all this years later. I still love Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
Well done, Miss Watson.
Wow. So then, you moved back to New York.
Moved back to her. So then I had no job. I quit my job. And I'm like, I'm moving again with nothing on the horizon. And Gina Gardini, who was the publicist for Miramax at the time where our deal was, said, my boyfriend, Todd Phillips, who wrote and directed Road Trip, is looking to hire a New York development executive. Are you interested? And I said, wait a second, really? Wow. And she said, yeah, he's in LA right now. Why don't you have lunch with him? He's staying at the Four Seasons on Doheny. So I went. Mark, this is such a nutty story.
So cool. Like, just one door closes, one door opens.
Bizarre.
Right?
So I went and had lunch with Todd, and I spent the first 45 minutes bitching about Los Angeles. And all I did was rip the entire city to shreds. And he's laughing the whole time because he's a New Yorker and he hates it out there also, or hated it out there.
Yeah.
And finally, like 45 minutes in, I said, wow, I really biffed this interview. I said, I'm so sorry I wasted your time. I wish you luck finding someone. Clearly, you don't want somebody as bitter as me, like, coming into this job. And he said, what are you talking about? He said, when could you start? He said, Gina says you're amazing and that Kevin loves you and, you're great, Albert. Let me know. Just figure it out. Tell me.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, really? You're hiring me?
Your disdain for LA, your shared disdain.
Yes.
Is what got me the job. Gig. Oh my God.
And then I set my start date and then I moved back. And then a month later started working for him as he was writing Old School.
Wow.
And he would send me pages for that. And, and then I was meeting with writers for other projects. And it was about a year and a half into that really similar thing with Kevin is the business started really pulling him more and more to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And he decided that he was going to move the company out there. And then as you know, I was way was I going back.
That's so tough. Cause here you are with a second great guy,
huge
creator, company,
huge.
But you just knew, like, I'm not gonna be happy.
I can't do it. Yeah.
Wow. So doing development for him, I'm sure it was a mixture of kind of reading his stuff and then reading scripts from other people for him to produce and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. There were several things that we were trying to get made, and as we talked about earlier, that lengthy process of how long things take to get And one of what we did do is there were a lot of SNL writers at the time that we were talking to that had some really great feature ideas that we were trying to develop it. And we were really tapped into that whole world. And Todd remains, someone that everybody wants to work with, and he's such a cool guy.
He's bigger than ever, and it's funny because now he makes dramas, but back then
I know.
Silly, crazy, very popular. I mean, Road Trip,
very popular,
loved. And
whenever I run into him, it's like this moment of like, oh my God, Albert and Todd, but yet he's one of the most sought after directors now. It's amazing.
My God, yeah. It was just at Venice, right? I think with Joker 2.
Yeah.
They just had their
I can't wait
premiere.
to see it.
Oh, it's gonna be huge. Gaga, are you kidding? Like
huge.
It's already iconic. So then so he you have to quit, unfortunately. So did you is this where you kind of fell into live?
This was the fall into live 3-week stint, which ended up roping me in. And then within, I would say, the first few months of being there, it was very clear that Kelly was my person and I was her person, and we got very, very tight.
Oh my God. So it's probably been 20 years of working
2002.
together? Oh my gosh, yeah.
2002.
22 years, right?
Jesus,
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Albert. Yeah, I have to say it's so cool hearing your story because you have been able to really collaborate and befriend like really cool, interesting people for like long periods of time, especially lucky. Kelly, of course. But yeah, you really kind of like found amazing creators or characters, right? And stuck with them for as long as you were able to suffer.
I mean, loyalty. I mean, listen, these are people that I'm still, like I said, very close with. And, every time Greg comes to New York, I see him. Every time I'm in LA. When I go to LA now, I don't ever stay in a hotel. I either stay with Kevin or I stay with Greg.
So cool.
Because otherwise I don't get to see them. Like then you know what it's like when you're out there working.
Yeah, you guys are like maybe a couple texts, but it's like you never get to really see each other face to face.
Like we shot our Work Wife pilot for ABC a couple of years ago, and I was living in Greg's guest house, and I was coming home from work, and he would text me and say, "I'm ordering us Chinese food."
Oh my God, I love that.
And then we would eat Chinese food and watch Rachel Maddow, and then like barely speak because this was just one of your closest friends.
You're just you're like family. Wow. Yeah, Work Wife sounded great with Christopher Gorham, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love him from Popular, from a ton of TV. Wow. Yeah. So you do live, and when did Milojo start? Because everybody, Albert has been working for Kelly's company, Milojo, for years now. So did they come to you? Was it sort of a group idea? How'd that form?
So 2007, Mark and Kelly did a documentary that ended up airing on ESPN called The Streak.
Right.
And it was about a high school wrestling team that had a 34-year winning streak. And they hired this incredible director to go down and shoot. And they were 3/4 of the way through shooting it, and they lost the streak while they were filming.
Oh, geez.
And it made it into the doc, and it's one of the most incredible scenes of any documentary I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then the rebuild of this team and and the people and this environment, it was just an amazing feat. So that doc ended up going to Tribeca,
right?
And then it ended up airing on ESPN. And then out of that, Angela Shapiro, who was one of the ABC executives who helped cast Mark into All My Children, came to them and said, "Listen, you guys are producers now. I'm working at TLC and Discovery. I'm the general manager. Would you ever be interested in us doing some type of overhead deal so you could really beef up your company?"
Yeah,
and
cool. Wow.
They said yes, and they negotiated that deal. And it was really they were giving them money to really start like a head of the company and a development slate and bring in reality shows, docuseries, anything that would fit under the TLC Discovery umbrella. And Mark came to me and said, "Listen, I know you were from development before.
Right.
Would you want to go back? And here's the opportunity." And holy shit, it was like, really? This is the most incredible offer.
Yeah.
But with that came this fear of leaving. And again, like, how am I going to leave live? Like, this is a place that no one ever leaves. And then Kelly, when we talk about it years later, now she still says, "You were at the top of my pro and my con list." Like, how do I, like, you're the perfect person for this, but also how am I going to live without you on set every day?
Right.
I mean, Mark, you understand it because you were there. There's a rhythm in that place.
Oh,
and like,
for sure.
This person opens the door, that person walks through 2 seconds later. This person says this. And when that's thrown off, people are like, wait, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little scared to do it, but it was an opportunity that I, of course, had to say yes to.
Right.
And then I moved over to the company and started running it in 2008.
Wow.
Which has been amazing.
And so many shows, docs, specials. I mean,
we've done a lot.
How many things do you guys make a year, would you say?
God, it varies. There are certain years,
right?
certain years like we'll do like 4 or 5 projects and then little ancillary ones. Then there are years where we'll focus and we'll just do like 1 or 2. It really oscillates a lot. I will say the strike definitely slowed everything down. I mean, there's been
last year. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It kind of put all the brakes on so much.
Yeah.
Finally now we're starting to see more of an uptick in sales. Like we just sold a half hour to Hulu that we're very excited about.
Cool.
We have we're in production on Kelly's podcast. We have a bunch of true crime projects that are going.
Course.
So
oh my God, that's smart. Yeah.
Which by the way, that whole genre is
true crime. Oh my God. Isn't it crazy how like it's not showing any signs of slowing down? Like that is right? Yeah.
None.
That's great. So like some kind of docuseries about like real crime stuff. Yeah.
We did a docuseries called Exhumed that basically every episode, an exhumation like help solve a crime. And we would do these, it was crazy. And then we would have to like recreate these coffins coming out of the ground. And we were shooting all of these interviews with people and like, and a lot of it was during the pandemic, and we were doing these as remote shoots where I'm on an iPad and the subject is sitting somewhere else, and we hired a local camera guy in a mask that was sitting 15 feet away, and we pulled it off. It was crazy, but the reaction to it was, and I think I've never seen Kelly happier. True crime is like her.
That's great.
It's a sweet spot.
I was just there's a show called Fatal Family Feuds for Oxygen that's shooting in the Boston area near me, and I was just able to cast some actors for recreations, and it's so fun.
No way.
I did that long ago for Celebrity Ghost Stories. So much fun, like having these actors scream and creepy ghosts and stuff. So yeah, any true crime stuff, it's how can you not have fun, especially with you with Kevin Williamson's history and all that. It's just like so yeah, lots of things. Out of all the great stuff you guys have made together at Milojo, what are some of your most favorite? Because like you said, some serious, some fun. You did like the Fire Island show. I remember that.
Well, I was just going to get to it. I was just going to, when you said
Tell
that,
me.
No one in their right mind should ever shoot a show in Fire Island.
Oh,
ever.
God.
Where there are no roads, where there's no infrastructure, and you're now putting a bunch of camera guys and a whole crew in the Pines where nobody wants a camera in their face. And you're now trying to pull off a doc series. It was wild.
Hard. Yeah, that does.
It was wild.
Wow.
And we also went into it like with, there was so much more I wanted to be able to do in that show. Like we had sit down interviews with these guys that had been living on the island for like 40, 50 years. And then like, what life was like back then. But, it was a logo doc series, and they wanted it to be just about these guys.
Right.
So we peppered in a few scenes here and there, but holy shit.
Oh,
it was just a wild ride to produce that.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No rules. Wow. Yeah,
no rules.
What other big things over the years did you love, or maybe not love, but like big moments in your career?
Well, Generation Gap was a huge one. Kelly's game show. I will say, getting to do that with MGM, and watching Kelly in that genre, who it's so clear that that is just her sweet spot. And you get these these grandparents and these grandkids, and they just see Kelly and they just like light up. And the comedy that's inherent in that because of Jimmy and the whole, I don't know how much you've watched it, but like at the end of every episode, we do this toddler's choice where the little kid has to pick like the brand new car or like a Barbie dream house. And often they would pick the Barbie dream house, and you're like, this is so fucked up, but this is great television.
It's so great. Well, it's so interesting now because of the last year's writer strikes. Yeah. Have you noticed like the networks like ABC and other like at least, broadcast networks seem to really be leaning on more game shows, reality, less scripted, less expensive, with residuals. It's interesting. Yeah.
100%. I didn't realize this until recently when we were really digging in, but like a lot of these shows are shot overseas. Like there's a lot, almost all of the Fox game shows are shot in Ireland.
Oh, that's
because the tax incentives in Ireland are like 50%.
That's so interesting. So that's why all these dating shows are like on some exotic whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
It's all about chasing the tax incentive lately. And I just think these, New York and LA unfortunately can't compete with, Atlanta. You can shoot something down there for a fraction of the price.
Right.
So yeah, it's just interesting how, and especially a contained show like that just exists on a set that you can shoot anywhere. If you shoot it in, and it's, you're not needing to be outside. There are no exteriors, and you can pull it off anywhere for a fraction of what it would cost any of these other shows to get made. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's so interesting how you sort of started in scripted, but then you've really like completely dove into reality, unscripted docu. And are you here to stay, you think? Or do you think you will eventually do some more scripted stuff again? Or what do you think?
Well, we definitely, scripted is always like what gets us super excited. And like I said, we sold this recent series and we have another show that we just sold to Amazon.
And you need to, well, I guess I was about to say you need to tell me, but you don't need to tell me anything. But Mexican Gothic, right?
Mexican Gothic.
Is that
that's still in a holding, it's in a holding pattern right now.
You're working
a lot of those things, just take forever to get made.
Yeah, I believe it.
But no, it's to us, it's one of the things that you wish could happen faster. So you have to have all this other, you have to keep the doors open. So the reality and game and all this stuff, those things bring in money and they're very, very immediate. So yeah, we would say like we split 50-50 of our development is scripted and the other 50% is non-scripted, and it's fun.
And that
listen, I will say this,
cooking, right? Yeah.
You're always showing up to work, not realizing which hat you need to wear. And then throughout the course of the day, you have to change hats, and you're getting on calls for shows that have budgets that are 9 times what the podcast was that you just spoke about on the earlier Zoom. So you're never, it's very, it's cool. And I kind of love it.
Wow. And you're probably still, for someone who's been doing this for so long, where you've learned a lot of things on these different jobs, you're probably still learning things that you're then applying to the next show, the next gig.
Always.
Right? Wow.
Yeah. We're in the middle of doing a sports doc right now that we've not done before. And like, I'm just learning. It's just crazy. Like the whole world of, of shots and things that you're like, it's just fascinating to me. And we try to, our goal is to like hire showrunners to come in and run these things so that, you always want people that are better than you that you can learn from to be in those positions. And this one guy that we're working with on the sports doc, I am like just in awe of him. And I just want to, so yeah, that's the goal.
That's amazing.
In a lot of these.
Doing development for Milojo, you probably have a lot of meetings with showrunners and DPs and writers and all and produce, right? All these people to try to, hire your team and get that going. Yeah. That's amazing.
Like the Zoom I had before this was with a feature producer in LA about a feature film that we were developing.
Oh,
and
cool.
But we're not going to see you'll be talking about this with me in 5 years when it comes out. But it's
I know. Isn't it crazy how some things just take forever, and then other things you just shot it like 2 months ago and it's already like airing tonight.
Yeah.
Like it's weird how, right?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Well, before I let you go, tell us a little bit about the podcast. So you're working with Kelly on a podcast. You've been doing it now, what, a year? Has it been a year?
2
already?
seasons.
2 seasons.
Yeah.
Okay. Of Let's Talk Off Camera, right?
Let's Talk Off Camera.
It's so fun. I just can't believe Kelly still has the energy to do her show, of course, do live, and then do a podcast where she's talking more. Her voice.
Mark, it's the real, I will never forget when we were talking about doing a podcast, it was like an immediate thing right out of her mouth. Some of the most amazing conversations I have happen backstage and off camera, like right when we're in a commercial break. She said, but those never make it to air. And the lengthy ones, no one ever gets to hear. So why don't we? And it's like, that alone in the podcast form is, as you know, is gold, because there's a reason.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
like an
reason.
extended, because a lot of these guests, like I was just listening to the Teresa Giudice one because I'm a
Oh,
Housewives fan, but like she was just on live, right? So that's kind of
yeah,
almost like part one, but then yeah,
yeah.
part two, the real conversation, well, not real, but like the more in-depth conversation is, yeah, your show,
Yeah.
so
But
smart.
like yours, like you having like talking about milestones and like
Hmm.
there's a reason. Like you're giving
Hmm.
your show has a reason. Like her show has a reason. And I think it's not just a random, she just wants to sit in her son's bedroom, which is where our setup is,
Oh, is it
and
really?
interview. Oh my God. And interview people like there's a real reason she wants to do it. So she gets excited about it.
Yeah.
And as you know, too, I mean, we have a clock. It has to be under an hour because it airs on Radio Andy and it has like a time
Oh,
slot.
okay.
So but often we'll be doing interviews with some people for like 90 minutes,
Yeah.
2 hours.
Uh-huh.
And you're like the whole time, like, how the fuck is this going to cut down to an
Do you ever do
hour?
like a two-parter? Do you ever just split
Yeah,
it?
we've
Yeah,
had a few like
right.
Goldie Hawn. We were in the middle of Goldie
Oh,
Hawn, and I looked at Jan Chalet, who's the Wiener,
yes.
who's the producer, and I'm like, Jan. She's like, yeah, this is a two-parter.
Oh, of course. How do you cut that down? Oh my
You
God.
can't.
Oh yeah. You always plan for like an hour, right? But if the
Yeah,
person you're meeting with is a great and you have time, why
I know.
stop, So
But
that's
I'm also
amazing.
fascinated by how different it is. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because you do this.
Mhm.
You can edit podcasts so seamlessly, whereas TV, or at least on Kelly's podcast,
Video.
because it's audio only,
Okay.
you could take words out.
Yeah.
Kelly loved her goal, as she's always said, is to get paid to work off and not have to be in hair and makeup. So this is like,
I believe
this
it.
is her,
Right?
we've given her dream job.
Yeah, yeah. She's like, please, you don't need to, no, right? That makes sense. I totally get it. Because every day,
Yeah.
up
Oh,
early,
every
doing hair and
day.
makeup. Yeah, it's amazing. Well,
Every day.
any guests that from the podcast that you like really want to shout out that people should listen to? Any episodes that
Oh my
like
God.
were just
I
so
do
amazing?
there's a Josh Gad episode. I think it's the
Oh
one
yeah,
next week.
yeah.
And I tell this story that I don't care giving it away, but in the beginning of it, we do a little bit of chatter, and
Uh-huh.
I had gone to, and we were talking at the beginning of the episode that I had gone to fight a parking ticket in Sag Harbor, which I had never done in my entire
Oh,
life.
yeah.
And I walk into the courthouse and I sit down and I watch this whole proceeding happening in front of me. And I hear the judge say, "Did you hear everything that I just explained to you, Mr. Timberlake?"
Oh, oh wow.
And it was literally
Wow.
Justin Timberlake's arraignment, like whenever that was
Oh
over the
my
summer.
gosh.
And
Wow.
so we get into that whole thing, and you have to hear Kelly talk about it. It's really
Oh,
funny.
that's so fun. No,
But
it's
Josh is a great interview. Coleman
yeah.
Domingo, like we've done a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
really cool ones lately.
Yeah.
Henry
That's
Winkler,
amazing.
my God, like an icon.
Of course. And
Yeah.
are you booking guests? Is Jan? You have a whole little
No,
team, right?
we have a talent booker that books
Okay.
them.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh my
Yep.
gosh, guys. Good for you. That's
It's
so
great.
cool.
We love
It's so
it.
funny. I mean, Jan probably doesn't remember me, but I just remember she was pregnant when I interned. She was the
No.
skinniest pregnant woman I've ever seen in my life. I remember we were like, she
With
is
a
so
basketball.
thin with a
We talk
basketball.
about it all the time.
Right? I was like, how is that possible? Because, in the suburbs, everyone just gains some weight when they're pregnant. Not Jan. Wow.
Not Jan.
Impressive. Impressive.
Not
In
Jan.
heels, like walking around the studio. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
how is that happening? Right? So, yeah.
She's loving this format also, and I think she's also
she?
seeing, because when you produce celebrities on live, you know what it's like. There's 5 talk points for this segment. There's 3
Yes.
talk points for the next segment, and you're very limited to what you can get into. And Jan, as you are, is a huge Housewife fan.
Oh,
So
fun.
like
Yeah.
anytime we have them on, she like
Oh,
lights up. Yeah,
I could just hear those ladies it's just so fascinating. I could like just
yeah,
hearing Teresa's, I mean, I don't even, I'll cut this out. I don't even love Teresa, but still, I just love the Housewives,
yeah.
and it's just always a fascinating chat. Good. Well, I'm so
And the
happy now
downloads,
you're
I mean,
doing,
as you must, I mean, the
yeah.
downloads for those episodes are through the roof.
Oh,
And
I
we, and
bet.
we, oh
I
yeah,
bet.
people
Oh,
go,
yeah.
I mean, with Jan's like, we need to be booking more reality, like Bravo
Isn't that
people, because it's
I bet
the
if you guys
fan.
get Ariana from
Mhm.
Vanderpump, and oh my
Yep.
God, that's gonna be a huge episode. That should work on getting, oh my God, I can't imagine, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
so cool. Well, it's what also is so cool is it's another medium that you're adding to
Yes.
your career. Because had you
Yeah.
ever really done
Nope.
audio, radio, no,
None of
right?
it.
Cool.
We did a series actually for Audible, a
Oh, cool.
scripted drama
That's
or a
great.
dramedy, sorry, that's
Yeah.
coming out
Oh,
in
cool.
October.
Nice.
that Kelly and Mark are starring in. And
This
it's
is so cool.
really
I
cool.
love audio plays. I think that is so
Yeah,
cool. Because
it's great.
it's so old. They've been around for years, but they kind of got less cool. But now with just
Yeah,
right, they're cool again. So
it's cool.
what's it called? Can you tell
It's
us?
called Summer. Yeah, it's called Summer Breeze, and it's basically this woman who writes this feature film and takes it to this hot-headed producer, a la Harvey Weinstein type, that type of person who ends up telling her that it's not going to get made, and then steals it and puts his son's name on the cover as the writer. And then so this actress and then the star of this soap opera, Summer Breeze, who was also burned by this guy years ago, decide to create a storyline on the soap opera basically about this psychotic producer, and he catches wind of it and they try to take him down. So it's great.
Oh,
it's
sounds
really great.
Really good.
And Mark plays the producer and Kelly plays the actress of the soap series.
Love it. Is it going to be like one long thing, or is it episodes?
10 episodes.
10 episodes. Oh, this is so fun. This is so cool.
It's going to be great.
So smart. Oh, that's awesome. On Audible. Next month.
Audible.
October.
Yeah, next month. I forget the launch date, but we just got told it's coming out in October.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Audible?
Yeah.
So cool. I love that stuff. I just listened to like a whole bunch of the Vampire Slayer kind of sequel audio play they just did with a lot of the returning cast. Like, that is really cool. So I'm glad you guys are
I'm amazed at the sound effects that they can do, what the work that whole, I mean, that to me blew my mind, because I was there for all the records. And then you listen to like one of the scenes has them in Odeon, a restaurant downtown. And listening to it, I was like, oh my God, they're in Odeon. Like it's just unbelievable the work that those people do.
Absolutely.
In the edit.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other art that people kind of ignore sound, even in film and TV, you kind of ignore it, but it's like obviously hugely important.
Huge.
Sometimes more than camera, I think.
Because it could rip you right out of it if it's not done right.
Absolutely. And if it's not edited and mixed correctly, it's going to be like, what? And it takes you right out of the story,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, Albert. Well, I kept you late. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. No worries.
This was amazing. I'm so grateful.
Mark, I'm so happy to see you again.
This is so cool. You are so cool. I'm so happy you made the time. I so appreciate it, Albert.
Of course. Let me know when you're in New York, please.
Oh,
please.
That'd be so fun. Yeah. And I gotta reach out to Kyle, and maybe, because what would you do shooting right now?
Kyle's Vegas Lounge Act parody if you're in, it's going to come to the Gansevoort in New York in October.
Nice.
They're going to do a one night only. It's called A Touch of Vegas. It should definitely be seen.
And it's just two actors. It's Kyle and
it's
an
Kyle
actress.
and his Jenna Ryan, who is his partner, who he went to USC with. They play this washed up Vegas lounge duo who get kicked out of their hotel because it's being turned into a Hooters. And they now come, they try to make it in New York on Broadway, and it's just funny.
Oh,
that's a
so
great one.
And they wrote it and are starring in it. And do they direct it as well, or do they have a director?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, and it is tight. It is a tight 90 minutes, and you should have seen the reaction in LA and like all these people and they have these big producers now, these Broadway producers that are really working with them to try to figure out how to parlay it into something.
That's great.
Yeah.
How long is it playing at the Gansevoort? Do you know?
It's going to be a one night. I'll send you the info for it. It's going to be a one night at the Gansevoort and then one night at Bay Street Theater next weekend. But yeah, that's going to be a cool one.
Nice. Oh yeah, we got to keep our eyes out for that. That could be so fun.
But no, the Let's Talk Off Camera is is a big deal for us. So I'm glad that you're into it.
It makes perfect sense. But like I said, I'm just like, wow, Kelly just fills up her days, because I mean, she's doing that, doing this, but like you said, I mean, she's been doing it for years, and she's a professional talker, so it only makes sense to continue the stories, Yeah.
I mean, Mark, people just love her. I mean, the amount, and like even the talent booker who books for Kimmel and books for all these other shows was like, Albert, I get yeses for her when I've gotten no's from people like, because the trust factor.
Yeah. She's been on the air for so long, and she really is so cool. Like, when people asked me back in the day when I was working with you guys, I was like, oh no, Kelly's cool. Like, she is so cool.
She's badass.
I remember she almost, she kind of asked me to dog sit one of her dogs back then.
Oh, no way.
We both had Shih Tzus. My parents had a Shih Tzu.
Chewy was probably Chewy.
Yeah, Chewy probably, right. But it didn't work out. I'm sure someone told her, like, you don't really want an intern. You barely know this guy. But I was just so excited that, like, in her dressing room, she's like, would you dog sit over the holidays? I was like, Mom, Dad, I might not be coming home. I might be dog sitting Kelly Ripa's dog. It didn't work out, but just story alone, I'm like, amazing, So,
Dying.
well, thank you so
much. But it all
much.
starts with an internship, as you know.
Yes, absolutely, kids. I hope you're listening. Intern. You never know.
Intern.
You might be producing something with Kelly Ripa one day, right?
My God. Yes, that's true.
Wow, what a great time with our special guest, Albert Bianchini. Thank you, Albert, so much for taking us down memory lane. What a career. Wow, thank you. And thank you, Julia from Milojo Productions, for coordinating our schedules and helping me set this up. Thank you, Julia. And thank you all out there for listening to this episode of Release Date Rewind. If you haven't already, leave a rating or a review on your favorite podcast app, a thumbs up on YouTube, and also please tell your friends about this episode. Thanks Straw Hat Media, Kyle Motzinger, Greg Clements, and Portland Media Center. If you aren't already, follow me on Instagram at Release Date Rewind to see clips of our conversation and more footage and trivia. And on the next episode of the podcast, everybody, we are heading to Central Perk to celebrate the 30th anniversary of that little TV show called Friends. Have you ever heard of it? Bye.